Hello YouTube, this is Jessica Giaquinta. I'm here to do an all about my series video where I will talk about the various series that I am working on. Currently I have 3 of them that I am working on. I have 3 separate notebooks that I am writing down ideas for. I'm not the type of person to completely plot out my novels, which does present its own set of challenges and stuff. But for me, it is harder to follow an outline than to just start writing and come up with what comes to my mind. So that's what I prefer to do. So I'm the pantsing variety of writer, and I know for people who are outliners, it's like, what are you doing? It's just, that's just how my brain works. But the first one I'm going to talk about is obviously my Reaper series that I am currently working on. And I have the first one out that is ready for pre-order. That will be going through until December 3rd when it is completely published. It's called Stand Up, Fight Back. And basically I'm going to talk about just a quick overview of what the series is. Now, it is a young adult murder mystery with supernatural elements in it. And when I was actually putting it onto Amazon, like their keyword tags and everything, there was, well, not really the keyword tags, more of the actual genres. I could not find anything that was labeled as supernatural. So I had to go with a backup one, which was LGBT, which is something that is featured predominantly in the book, and it is one that I really want to have good representation for. So I have worked with a lot of my friends who are part of the LGBT community, and I hope that everyone can read this and know that I'm trying my hardest to make sure that everyone is being represented in a positive way, and any negatives that come of it are pointed out as negatives. It's like, this isn't right. This isn't what we should be experiencing as people. So I wanted to bring that to light. Now, the main point of this series is that it centers around the Reapers, like the stereotypical Grim Reaper you would imagine. But these ones they're actually split up into 2 different groups, the Intake Reapers and the Distribution Reapers. Now, the Intake Reapers are the ones that you would normally think of as the Grim Reaper. They come to I call it the Mortal Coil, because I'm a D&D nerd, so that's the best way for me to describe it. Because Reapers live in sort of a middle ground type of world, where it's not like heaven or hell, because in my series there is really no hell, but there is something called the Endless, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But back to what I was saying. The Reapers, basically, the Intake Reapers come to the Mortal Coil, and they usually will come at the time that a person dies. And when the person dies, they are there, they take the soul of the person, and they basically have a quick overview of what their life is. It's sort of like watching their life in super fast forward. And they basically get a good sense. It's like, hey, you were majoritively good, or you're majoritively bad, or you're sort of in the mid-ground. And then they make a recommendation for where they should go. Now, the 2 places where you could end up as a spirit is you can either go to heaven if you have learned all the lessons that you needed to learn in life, or you could go what's called the Endless. Now, the Endless is basically where you would go to be reincarnated so that you can learn the lessons that you did not learn during this lifetime. Now, normally, if you go through the Endless, you maybe will then go to heaven the very next time. But there are rare cases where a soul has gone through the Endless multiple times, and that's where the story kind of picks up at. And I wanted this idea because I do believe in reincarnations, because deja vu is a thing. And I liked the idea that it's like you don't necessarily go to like a purgatory or something like that, but you just keep having to be reborn over and over again until you learn your lesson of what's going to get you into heaven. And I really wanted to have that kind of distinction. And then that segues into the distribution reapers. Now, the distribution reapers are actually the ones that handle the souls and take them into one or the other. They take the souls that have been recommended for either heaven or the endless, and then they actually physically walk them to those sections. Now, the intake reapers are above ground. They're in I described it as a college campus looking place. It's literally in the middle of a wasteland, but it's such a stark area that it's like, okay, there's nothing for miles except this one little compound. So they're in the top, and the distribution reapers are actually down below, where they send their reapers to go to either heaven or the endless to drop off the souls. I haven't completely thought of how they do this, but I do know that I want them to take them by the hand to heaven and then drop them off into the endless, but that will be for later books. I do have plans to make this about a 6 to 7 book series, and because there's too much story for me to be able to do it in only like a trilogy. So I definitely am having more than just a few books. Now, the whole series is prefaced on this issue that's been going on. For the last several months, they have noticed a stark spike in the number of people who are being brought through, and people are dying. And it's like, they're used to a pretty high volume because there is a lot of people in the mortal coil. But they're not used to double and triple the amount every day. And like, with the exception of war or natural disasters, that kind of thing, they're not used to such a large surge for a large period of time. So that's where the concern comes from. And their world basically revolves in the same time frame as the mortal world. So while they can't be seen by everyone else, certain people can see them. And that's why a lot of the time you get like strange mythos, which will be featured later on. And right now, the only one that's been confirmed to be able to see them is Piper. And Piper can see them because when she was born, she actually had her heart stop a total of 6 times. And each time she nearly died, she would have been taken by one of the Reapers, Victoria. And I didn't mention her in my Meet the Cast because she is super, super fresh in the first book, and I haven't completely gotten her introduced, but she's quickly becoming one of my favorite Reapers to actually flesh out. And Victoria handles the cases of souls that most Reapers don't want to deal with, and that is the souls of infants and children under 5, because of the fact that they have so much potential, and 9 times out of 10 they haven't done anything to warrant going to the endless, so they're just automatically shipped to heaven. But it's really hard for a Reaper, even some of them who've been around for a very long time, like Victoria, it's still very hard for them to see these balls of potential never get that potential. So she handles the ones that Reapers don't want to deal with. So, and she's a young girl herself. She's actually only, I think I made her 8 years old. So she's young. She knows what potential would be, but she never got that chance. And in this world of the Reapers, there are, I believe, 3 total ways that you can actually become a Reaper. Now, I'm going to give some examples of them with 3 of the Reapers. First one is going to be Victoria. Victoria became a Reaper after she was killed when she was 8 years old during the Revolutionary War. And because she had so much good potential in her, Lazarus decided to offer her a chance. It's like, do you want to do the good that you could have done in life? And she agreed, and that's when she became a Reaper. She's actually one of the older Reapers because she's been around for so long. One of them, there's hundreds of Reapers, but you only see a handful of them in the actual series. Now, the next one that I'm going to talk about is Irene. Now, if you remember from my Meet the Cast video, I talk about Irene and her twin sister, Elisa. Now, Irene is the only one who actually made this particular choice, because the second way for you to actually be able to become a Reaper is if you make a deal with a Reaper. Sort of like making a deal with the devil, but this one is specifically about making a deal with, say, Lazarus or with Warren, that kind of thing. And Irene and Elisa were handmaidens. Too Long didn't read. They both got sick at a young age. They're about, I want to say maybe about in their early 20s. I don't remember exactly how old I made them, but they were still very young. And they got sick, and Elisa died first. And Irene, having never been separated from her sister, is like, no, I can't be away from her. So she made a deal with she called upon someone who would be able to help her, and Lazarus came because he was the one who was taking Elisa's soul. And she made a deal with Lazarus. It's like, I will become a Reaper for you and work with you personally if you bring my sister with me. And that is how she became a Reaper. And that amount of selflessness to, I wouldn't really call it selfless. It's more of self-preserving because she wanted to keep her sister with her as long as possible. So now her and Elisa are the personal, I hate to call them secretaries, but they're basically like the gatekeepers to Lazarus. They're the first ones that you deal with before you get to the big boss. Now, Warren's case is actually the more common one. Irene and Elisa's case is pretty common as well, but Warren's is the one where they normally will get the majority of their Reapers. And that is if you die and you have done just absolutely horrible things in your life. You have squandered the potential that you had, and you have just basically screwed up any chances you have of learning said lessons when you go to the Endless. And because of what Warren did at the time of his death, when Lazarus came to him to take his soul, he told him that it's like, you can have redemption if you serve out a sentence with me. Otherwise, you will be going through the Endless until you learn it, which is a very slim possibility. And basically, you make a deal, and it's not really a deal. It's more of you make a sentence that says, I will be a Reaper for this amount of time. And Lazarus is completely at his discretion to decide how long that's going to be. And for Warren, because of what he's done, he now has to spend a millennium being a Reaper until he can go to heaven. Basically, he has to spend an entire 1,000 years plus before he can go on to heaven. And it's startling when you actually break down the amount of time he's got to how much time he's actually got to do this. It makes sense because of all the bad that he did. I really like that stark contrast between the 3 different ways that you can actually become a Reaper. And that's basically all I have for the Universe of the Reaper series. Again, while I'm working on this, more than likely I will have more videos come out adding to the lore of everything so that you understand a lot of the background stuff that you're more than likely not going to see in the actual series. So, again, I hope everyone has enjoyed this. You can find me on Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube as well. Leave a comment down in the section below. Tell me what your favorite part of this video is. If you have a particular character from my Meet the Cast that you like, put their name down in the comments section below, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Maybe we have the same favorite characters so far. All right? We'll see you in the next video. Keeping fabulous. Bye-bye!